Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Stitching Between Pages. I'm Robin, and you can find me on Ravelry as halfpast92. You can find me on Twitter as @medievalisting, that's MEDIEVALISTING, and also as medievalisting on Instagram. And so thanks for watching. When I post this, it will be Sunday, June 14th, but this weekend I'm going to be busy with other things and unable to film, so it's currently during the week. So that's why I'm filming where I'm filming, which is sitting at my kitchen table, which gets slightly better light than in my apartment does. I'm filming after work, and so it's a little bit later in the evening. Usually I film sort of midday, and that's not a possibility. So here we are. Yay! Thank you to everybody who has gotten in touch over the course of the past 2 weeks, whether that's leaving a comment on the YouTube video, sending me a message on Ravelry, friending me on Ravelry, commenting on Instagram or friending me there, liking my photos. It really does mean a lot, and I really enjoy hearing from all of you. Thank you also to everybody who's subscribed. There's a lot of you, and that's overwhelming and very touching. Especially thank you to all of those of you who encouraged me to start a Ravelry group. We have a Ravelry group now, so please come over. It's Stitching Between Pages podcast, self-explanatory. So please come over, say hello. There's a few members already as of when I am filming this, but I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you, and I share with you every other week what I'm knitting and what I'm reading, and I really look forward to hearing from you all what you're reading and seeing what you're knitting. I'm always looking for recommendations for new patterns to knit and new books to read. I have, a favorites list on Ravelry that's a mile long, and a list of books to read that's also a mile long. So both of them grow faster than I'll ever be able to, I'll never be able to catch up. But that's the fun of it, right? So I really look forward to getting that group going and whatnot. Also new this week, this is like the week of new things. I started a blog. So right now it's just going to be show notes. So instead of show notes down here, there will now, below the video, there will still be a link. There will just be a link to the blog. And all of the show notes will be on the blog. So it's stitchingbetweenpages.blogspot.com. And you can head over there. I've uploaded all of my show notes from the previous 5 episodes, so they're all there. Hopefully it's an easier format, easier for everybody to read. And I have some ideas for things that I could do with the blog besides just show notes, but for now, I'm starting small. For now, it's just the show notes. I think that's all of my news and announcements for the week, for this episode, rather. It's every other week. So without further ado, I will mention I'm drinking just plain decaf black tea, since it is after work. I have to be up really early tomorrow for work, so not drinking caffeine. And it's in my coffee is not my cup of tea mug, which we all know coffee is totally my cup of tea. Tea is also my cup of tea, but this was given to me by my friend Katie. I think I've used this mug on the podcast before. It's one of my favorites. It's such a good size, and it's, lovely and to wrap my hands around. So that's that. So I'll start with finished objects, I think, because I have 2. The benefit of filming midweek is that I get to show you my bunting that I knit for my colleague who is expecting a baby. And I don't think I can realistically hold this up so that you can see all of it, but I'll hold it up so that you can see some of it. And I tried to keep the colors alternating in a way that was pleasing. Let's see here. There we go. I like the bright red one. And so there we have it. This is from the Party Bunting pattern by Joe Shaw, knit in a variety of miscellaneous DK and fingering weight yarns that I was given by a colleague of mine who also knits. And so she knit up some bunting and I knit up some bunting, and there we go. Very excited for the baby shower, which is to come this week. So that should be a lot of fun, and I'm really happy to be able to contribute a little something to the decorations. It's always really nice to be able to get together with my colleagues in we're still at work, but it's not a work environment. So I'm really looking forward to that, and looking forward to congratulating my colleague on her little baby. My other finished object, which will likely come as no surprise, is, and I don't think I can show this all at once either, it's my Whispering Pine shawl. There we go. And it blocked out absolutely wonderfully. I think I might have knit a little bit more lace edging than the pattern called for. I just kind of kept going until I liked how it looked. And that's what I settled on. I think there might be one more repeat. I stopped counting because after about 250 stitches, I decided that I was not into the whole counting thing any longer, and that I would just go until it looked good enough, because I actually still have yarn left over, so I could have kept going even more, but I was getting the feeling that it was going to block out to a good size, and I think I was right. So this is knit out of Swan's Island organic merino, organic washable merino, organic superwash merino in the lavender colorway, which is this beautiful soft purple. I think it looks a little bit more blue on my screen today than it is in real life. It is very much a true, I would say, sort of blue-red balanced lavender, if that makes sense. And so soft, so squishy. It's going to be very warm, and I'm going to have to take it off because summer is here, and I don't think it hit 90 today. I think it was probably about 85, and it actually wasn't too humid today, so it could be much, and it will be much worse as the season goes on. But I think they're talking that we're going to hit the low to mid 90s, which is the mid 30s Celsius. I think that's right, by the end of the week. So not looking forward to that. Definitely not wearing wool shawls anytime soon. But I had so much fun knitting this. It kind of flew off my needles, and the lace was such a lovely, easy to memorize, easy to sort of read, and if when I made a mistake, I immediately knew it and was able to fix it, that's my kind of lace. And this is the second shawl in a row that I've done that has a picot bind off, and time consuming as they can be, I really love the look of them. They're very dainty and feminine, and I think that fits with this shawl. I think it's a very dainty shawl with the little pearl bumps in the body and the lace, and I think it just is a very nice touch that Molly added. The pattern is designed by Molly of the A Homespun House podcast, I don't know if I said that already. I know I've said it on previous episodes, and it will, of course, be in the show notes. But in case I didn't say it this time, there you have it. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. There it is one more time. So that's that. I think 2 finished objects after, were there 2 episodes with no finished objects? I think that's pretty good. So that's that. Nice little triangle. I posted a picture of it to Instagram, all folded up in a triangle. But now it's going to go hang on my hooks that are on the outside of my hall closet doorway. I don't really have a hallway because I live in a studio apartment, but it's the entryway closet where all my coats are and things. I have a set of hooks that hangs on the outside of the door, and that's where I hang all my scarves. So that will go join its friends now that I've shown it off on the podcast. So next up are my works in progress, and having finished 2 things, I had major startitis the past couple days. I just cast on 2 things, and I don't have much to show for either of them, but I've started them, so I will show them. The first is knit. Actually, they're both knit out of yarn that I bought while I was in Philadelphia over Memorial Day weekend. And the first one, not very much time. I cast this on last night. It was my reward for cleaning my apartment, which I had been putting off a little bit. And so there you go. This will be, once it really gets underway, the Campside Shawl by Alicia Plummer, which both Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and Danny of Little Bobbins Knits, and Molly of Homespun House all are knitting or have knit recently. So I'm jumping on that bandwagon because it is a beautiful, big, DK weight eyelet shawl, and it just looks so snuggly and like the sort of thing that you could wrap around yourself in the winter almost like a blanket. And I'm really feeling that. So even though I just finished a shawl with eyelets, I just relatively recently, finished the Pebble Beach shawlette, which is sort of similar in that the patterning is all eyelets, but it's a half circle instead of a triangle, knit out of fingering weight yarn instead of DK weight yarn, and I'm using a very different color. This is much more, it's a sort of a tonal gray, and the yarn that I'm using for this is, check out this cake. This is the most delightful big DK weight cake of yarn. This is Loop Studio, which is the yarn that's exclusive to the yarn shop Loop in Philadelphia in the charcoal colorway. It's a DK weight, and I think there's about 350 yards per skein because I got 2 skeins for the Campside. Bought the yarn specifically to knit the Campside shawl, so I couldn't wait, had to cast on. So I finished last night the unpatterned beginning portion. So I'm at the point where you start the first eyelet chart. And I haven't done a whole lot of reading. I know there's some errata that I need to look up just so that I'm aware of it, and which Danny mentioned on her last episode. So I want to make sure that I know what I'm getting myself into, and I haven't really, you're supposed to read the pattern before you start knitting. Didn't do that. But also, before I get any further with this, I desperately need new size 7 circular needles. I only have 1 pair. I thought I had more. I thought I had a better pair than this. These are they're US 7s, which is what the pattern suggests, and I kind of use this as my gauge swatch, and I like the fabric I'm getting, and I think it'll be good for the shawl, and that I'll be able to knit the shawl with the yarn that I have. So I started, but they're like the craft store Clover brand, which I don't always have a problem with. I have several pairs of small, like 1, 2, 3, 4 US DPNs, which are fine. They're not my first choice, but I also don't completely hate them. I even have a small circular, like a 2 or a 3, that's okay. Again, not my favorite, but okay. I will use it and be happy. But for the US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter, for those of you not in the US, you probably can tell, this is like the fattest, least flexible cable ever. It doesn't flex. And so I'm knitting along, and this cable is just not cooperating with life at all. It doesn't do what I want. It gets in my way. It doesn't cooperate. I don't know what else to say about it. So I need to invest in a better pair or better set of US 7 circulars. And I honestly think I'm going to trash these because I won't. I'll keep them. But they're not what I want to knit with. And I really want to enjoy knitting this shawl, which I think I will. I just need better tools for my job. So fortunately, I think I will be able this weekend to get to my local yarn store, which is Fiberspace in Alexandria. And we'll see what needles I end up with. I'm kind of leaning towards Hiya Sharps because those have been so good to me lately. If you'll remember, that's what I knit my Whispering Pine shawl on, although that was on a US 6. So I think I was thinking that shawl and this shawl use the same size needle, and so that's why I thought I'd be okay. But as it turns out, they don't. So this is currently a little bit, I cast it on yesterday. It's going to be on hold for like 5 days. But it's on hold until I can get better needles that work for the job. So the other thing that I cast on, also out of yarn that I bought in Philadelphia, this is Noro, right? No, it's not Noro. It's Koigu. KPPPM. Painter's Palette Premium, as opposed to just, is it, because there's like one with 2 P's or one with 1 P. Is it just Koigu Premium Merino? Whatever. This is my first time knitting with Koigu because neither of my local yarn shops stock it, as I mentioned. But it is stocked at the lovely Rosie's Yarn Cellar in Philadelphia, which is where I got it. And this colorway is the oh so cleverly titled P118C290. I don't know if half of that is the die lot number, because, there's the die code and then the die lot, so maybe the die code is just P118. I don't know. Whatever, it's the most creative yarn name I have come across in a long time, you all. This is, they just go together, like peanut butter and chocolate, or peanut butter and jelly, or other things that go together that don't involve peanut butter. I'm not going to come up with any. But anyways, that was a little bit of a digression to share my feelings on Koigu naming. So these are the Turkish, well, this is, and it's funky. You're not even going to be able to tell what it is right now because it's like this weird thing. It's a thing. This is the Turkish Bedsock pattern by Church Mouse Yarns and Tees, which that's somewhere I want to go. That is on my yarn shop bucket list. I don't know if there's anything else on there at the moment, but that is on my yarn shop bucket list. So it's these cute little, it was designed for the shop for a single skein of Koigu. And I think this will be so adorable as little slippers. They're kind of ankle, so let's see if I can explain. They're very cleverly constructed, and I'm very much enjoying that because they're going to be very quick. I started these, let's see here, 2 nights ago, and I didn't work on it at all last night. So this is 1 night of knitting. So you cast on, this is the ankle, this reverse stockinette 3 rows. Then you knit sort of the ankle bit. You bind off stitches on both sides and knit a little heel flap. Then you pick up some stitches alongside the heel flap to knit the bottom of the heel, and then you join it to the flaps that are the ankle. And then once I join the other side, I got tired of seaming, and I'm not certain that I'm happy with. Seaming is not one of my strong suits at all. Neither is weaving and ends. They're both skills that I would really like to improve. So if anybody has any good, I mean, I think I'm okay, but I'd really like to improve them because I think that's something that I can do that will really push my knitting to the next level. Like, I don't think that looks bad, but I think I could do a tidier job. And I'm okay when it's joining knitting that's going in the same direction, or like knitted edge, like this sort of edge to the same sort of edge with mattress stitch, but I struggled a little bit to join knitting going this way to knitting going this way. So that's why I didn't do the other side and why I'm still stuck with this weird thing. So once I finish seaming, then we have stitches that are on the needle, and I imagine that you pick up stitches here, cast on some stitches for the top, and pick up stitches here. But I haven't gotten that far yet. I really love how this is knitting up. This yarn is just beautiful. It's sort of soft. It must be all about the soft feminine colors lately, she says, as she's wearing pale pink. Because this just looks so, I don't know, looks rather feminine to me. And I don't know. There we go. That's how it is. And I love this little tiny pop of bright blue right there. That's the only one so far. I know Koigu is hand-painted and every skein is different and whatnot. But yeah, I really love this color. So that's that. I'm also excited to put some of this into my crochet blanket, which I do not have to show you because I have done nothing. I think I crocheted like 2 of the squares that I showed last time into the blanket. That's not worth showing. I need to have a little bit more to show for myself. So I'm knitting the Turkish bed socks on my Knitter's Pride Cubics, which these are needles that I really like. And I know the fact that they are cubes throws people off a little bit, but I actually find them very comfortable to knit with. And I love whatever wood they used. It's very hard. And I mean that in a good way. The needles feel very, very sturdy. I'm, putting a little bit of pressure on them, and I'm not feeling like I'm going to snap it in half. They're pointy, which I love for a wood needle. That's a pretty good point. Let's see here. There we go. And I'm using, these are US 3s, which is 3.25 millimeter, which is the size that the pattern recommends. So I didn't swatch. I haven't even measured my gauge, but I think I'll be all right. That looks like it'll fit my foot okay. And I fully intend to wear these as kind of bed socks or around the house little slippers. So I'm just more enjoying the construction and wanted to have a sock-like thing on the go, but I haven't done anything with my green and cream socks either, despite saying that I was going to finish the foot of the first one. So those are still on hold, alas. But the thing that is not on hold any longer is, and if you follow me on Instagram, you will know exactly what is coming in my adorable, pretty cheap project bag. I love the little birdies. My Bonnie tank top, which is a tin can knits pattern from their Handmade in the UK collection, which I am knitting out of Juniper Moon Farms Findley, which is 50% merino and 50% silk, so it's super soft. And this is the Atmosphere colorway. I think it's color number 10 or color number 7. Don't remember. Anyways, I have used a lot of this. I know it still kind of looks quite big, but it's not nearly as big as it was. So I'm just using a single skein, which is amazing. I love lace weight yarn because one skein is making me a whole tank top. So last time I showed this, I had done just a tiny little smidgen of the lace chart on the front. Then last time I podcasted 2 weeks ago, well, really for me, in the time I am now, about a week and a half ago, but by the time you guys see this, it'll have been 2 weeks. I said that I'd finally managed to print off the lace chart at work, and I was hoping that was going to spur me on to get going and really finish it, because it's the right time of year to be wearing this. And I love wearing hand knits to the office, and I love wearing hand knits, and this is a hand knit. I don't know if I'll be able to wear it on like the hottest of hot days, but I think it'll be comfortable for, you know, the air-conditioned office on a warm-ish, hot-ish day. So the front is done. I have separated and knit the front. So this is roughly how it will look. I love the curl of the neckline, because for the first few diamonds in the pattern, you're decreasing the width of the stockinette as you increase the number of lace stitches. Then you get to a point where you stop decreasing. The number of stockinette stitches remains the same, but the number of lace stitches continues to increase, and that's how you get the lovely neckline. And once I got going on this, I could not put it down. It was just like back when I was doing the stockinette, and I knit the stockinette in like 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. It was kind of crazy. I know that's not fast for some people, but that's really fast for me. So once I got going, this was the only thing I wanted to knit, and I couldn't stop. So here we go. And this little fellow is, you might remember, I think I showed him when I was using him as a stitch marker, but I put him here to mark where I needed to measure from or count from to figure out when to stop. And this little fellow is a bee, because I love bees. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I got to see my friend in Philadelphia. The church where she lives has beehives. So I got to see the bees, which was a very exciting thing because I love bees. So this little fellow, this little bee, is from Danny, from back when I participated in her Cup Cozy swap and we were partners. She very kindly sent me this little fellow and some little stitch markers that have the orange bead. So he is a much loved addition to my, I just left him on here because I don't want to take him off because he's so cute. And I love blue and orange together as well. So the front is done and I am almost done. The back, very boring. The back is just plain. And the reason that I'm not done is because I don't want to finish. Now that I've started working on this again, I love this. This is one of my favorite. I love all of the things that I knit, and I love all of the things that I've knit recently. But this has just been, it's really brought me nothing but pleasure knitting this. I love the yarn. I love the pattern. I love the needles I'm using. The needles I'm using are Hiya Sharps. This was the first time that I used them, and I love them now. So this is on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter. And this is like a 26 inch circular, 24 inch, whatever that size is. So I have tried it on. I've obviously not blocked it yet. It fits very well, which is good because I actually swatched for this. I did my gauge swatch and I measured it, and I thought long and hard about what size. I knit the extra small because it's designed to be worn with a fair amount of negative ease, because this is like super, super, super stretchy. And so I agonized for a little while over whether to knit the smallest size, which I think was an extra small, the extra small or the small, because I didn't want it, I want to wear it to work, so I didn't want it to be skin tight. But I also wanted to make sure that I would get a size that was relatively close fitting, because that is how the pattern is designed. And so I went with the extra small, and I'm very glad I did, because not blocked, it fits well but snugly. So I'm going to block it only very gently. I really think I'm just going to splash it in some water and then just kind of toss it out and let it dry. Lay it flat and let it dry. Because it does not need to get bigger. And I think this lace is simple enough and clear enough without blocking that I'm not worried about sort of aggressively stretching and pinning it. I really don't think it will benefit. No. So once I'm done with the back, then I'm just blocking it and seaming the shoulders and weaving in all of, like, I think there's like 4 ends because I had to separate at the back. So or 3 ends, because there's an extra end when I started knitting the back. No, I guess 4 ends, because there's an end. Goodness. Graduated college can't count, because there's the cast-off end, bind-off end from the front as well. So that's that. And I love this so much. And I think I have a couple of other sort of short sleeve, summery tops, cardigans, t-shirts. Everybody's knitting t-shirts lately. I want to join in on this knitted t-shirt craze. But there's I don't remember the name of the cardigan pattern, but it's a really cute little short-sleeved cardigan with, I think it has some lace detail on the sleeves, and then maybe a little bit of lace detail on the fronts or on the back. I'm not describing this well at all, and clearly I don't remember it as well as I think I do. But it caught my eye. I think it might be a Knit Picks pattern, which is attractive to me because that means that I can afford the yarn. So we'll see. I told myself that I was not allowed to purchase yarn for another, or seriously think about starting another short sleeve tank top t-shirt type summer knitting pattern until I finish this one. I'm also really intrigued by linen and knitting with linen. I almost knit a Quince & Co. pattern. I don't remember the name of it either, but it's knit in their fingering weight linen, which I think is Sparrow. Could be wrong about that too. I will try to include the names of all of these patterns that I'm talking very vaguely about in my show notes, in case anybody's interested. But the Quince & Co. top was striped, kind of a neutral ground with very narrow stripes in a bright color. And it's kind of a swingy, loose top. But I'm very intrigued by knitting with linen and how it gets better when you machine wash it, as opposed to most knitting, which gets worse when you machine wash it. Sometimes disastrously worse. But linen obviously gets better and softens up and gets more flexible the more it's run through the harshness of the washing machine. So I'm really intrigued by that too. So we'll have to see which route I take. I don't really want to knit with cotton. I could be convinced to do a cotton wool blend, I think. So we'll see. We'll see what is next. First of all, I need to finish Bonnie. Hopefully in 2 weeks it'll be done. Maybe I'll even wear it on the podcast. That would be exciting. Because I haven't really worn any hand knits. I guess that's the sad thing about beginning my podcast in April and then living in a very hot, humid climate in the summer. So, or living in a climate that gets very hot and humid in the summer. So, yeah, I do have lots of hand knits, and I do wear them all on a relatively regular basis. So, that is all of the works in progress that I have to show you. I have made next to no progress on either of my crocheted things this week, so I'm not going to bother showing them. I do have one other knitting related thing that I want to talk about very briefly, which is that I'm planning to participate starting on June 21st, I believe, which is coming up. June is flying, like May, like April. Somehow it's the second week of June already. On Monday, the 15th, June will be half over. So June 21st, Bakery Bears are starting their Brit-along, which I think is the most brilliant idea for a knit-along ever. And I am having lived in the UK for 2 years, having visited numerous times, having been obsessed with England and all things English for as long as I can remember. Greatest idea for knit-along. So I have some ideas that are percolating, and I thought I would show off. I don't think I showed this on the podcast. This is my speckled yarn from the Wool Barn. And I think Maya is the dyer behind the Wool Barn. She is in England. So the idea of the Brit-along, knit-along, is that you use British yarn, or yarn that's dyed by a British dyer, or a dyer who lives in Britain. Or you knit a pattern designed by a British designer. So this is one of my ideas, and I don't know this has to be something special. And I think it has to be a shawl. I don't think, I can't knit socks out of this. It's just too pretty. The colorway, this is her luxury sock base, and the colorway is called Bunting. So it is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 400 yards on 100 grams. And so this just cries out to be something very special. And I think the speckles and pops of color are subtle enough that it could work really well in a shawl. Also, I love the fact that it's tied off. Her card is tied on with polka dot ribbon. I think that's so cute. So this is one idea. The other idea is that I would really, and I've been wanting to knit for a long time, a Kate Davies pattern. She is one of my favorite designers, and I've never actually knit one of her designs. So I feel like it's a little weird to say that somebody is a favorite designer when you haven't actually tested knitting their designs. But everything she designs is just beautiful and so well thought out, and she's a historian by training, which I really appreciate. And she's also very much become a historian of knitting, which I find absolutely fascinating. If you aren't a reader of her blog, I encourage you to go check it out. She always has wonderful insights and things to say, and sometimes her dog, Bruce, is guest poster on her blog, and those posts are so funny. So she recently designed a shawl that's called Fantouche, which I think means like something super fancy. I'm not sure I'm not saying that correctly. It's a beautiful shawl. It's lace. I have something that I think might work for it, but I'm not sure if it's the best thing for it. So we'll see. We'll see. I need to put some more thought into this, but let's see here. I guess So the 21st is a week from Saturday, the 13th. I think that's right. So next time I podcast, hopefully I will have something on the go. So if any of you have any thoughts or ideas, either about what I could knit with this, or insight into your favorite Kate Davies design, I'm really looking to knit something that is a single skein. At this point, probably a single skein of fingering. So really, a shawl is where I'm going with this. Or if you have another favorite British designed pattern that I haven't thought about. I haven't looked at anything by Isolde Teague, who I've knit a couple of her designs and love them. So that would be a great option. Yeah, if you have any ideas or thoughts, chime in. Chime in. You can now chime in on the Revelry group. Yay! So, all right. I got a lot of lovely feedback from you all about my sharing of my trip to Philadelphia and my museum outings. So, living near DC as I do, I try really hard to get to museums at least once a month, because there is no excuse not to. I live so close, and so many of the wonderful museums in this city are free. All of the Smithsonian museums are free. The National Gallery of Art, which is not a Smithsonian museum, it's the government still, but it's not Smithsonian. That's free. The U.S. Botanical Garden, which I haven't been to the Botanical Garden in a long time, but it's one of my favorites. That's free. Library of Congress is free. The Folger Shakespeare Library, their museum, is free. They have a really great exhibit on at the moment about, is it about latitude or longitude? I forget which. But it's about early modern navigation on the oceans and the process by which they figured that out. So yeah, with all the free museums, there's really no reason for me not to. And I love going to museums. I love learning things, and I'm a history nerd, so seeing old things always makes me really happy. But this past weekend, there was a museum, which is not normally free, that was open for free, in affiliation with the DC Jazz Festival. So that museum was the Phillips Collection, which, as it states on the bag, was America's first museum of modern art. And I will tell you a little bit about the Phillips Collection. I don't think I'd ever been before. And it was one of those that I knew it was there. It's located in DuPont Circle, by the way, or near DuPont Circle, in the DuPont neighborhood. And it's in the home of Duncan and Marjorie Phillips, who were the people who founded it in 1921. Duncan Phillips was a Pittsburgh native who earned his fortune in steel, as did so many Pittsburghers, in the first part of the 20th century. And their mansion, they were collectors of art, and modern art specifically. And their mansion became a museum. And their mansion is still, I think they've added wings now, but their mansion with their collection is still very much the core of the museum. And it was really neat to go through the museum and see, it's the whole range of modern art. It's art that's modern in the sense, I guess, contemporary art that, is less than a decade old. There's photographs. There's a collection of photographs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which sometimes I love and sometimes I don't. I think it very much depends who the person is in the photos or what the person behind the camera wanted to say, if that makes sense. Sometimes they connect with me. There was a really great photo of a slightly tipsy couple at a famous DC bar, and they were just leaning up against each other and just looked like they were having the time of their lives, and I loved that. But then there's some photos that just look like something that I could take with my camera, and if you catch the right moment and it grabs me emotionally, I love it. So there's photographs from the 50s, but then there's art that was modern when Duncan and Marjorie Phillips were collecting it. So there's a Degas painting. He's the one who did the ballerinas, so he's always one of my favorites. There's Monet and Whistler. It's interesting to think about what modern art means. And I don't remember if it's the Galleria dell'Accademia in Florence. I think it was. When I was in Italy several years ago. I'm not old enough for many years ago. Several years ago, there was a sort of neon sign atop, I think it was the Galleria dell'Accademia in Florence, that said all art was once modern. And that's really an interesting thought exercise, that the Renaissance masters were once when they were making their art, they were doing something very revolutionary. And I think that's really fascinating. I think it's a neat thing to think about. And it's really neat to think about at the Phillips, where some of the art, there's the little labels that tell you, okay, this is this painting by this artist. This artist, lived from 1860 to 1952 or whatever. And then they tell you when it was painted, the year. And sometimes the year that the Phillips, or either Duncan and Marjorie or the Phillips collection acquired it, was a year or two after it was painted, which I think is really cool. That this art has basically for its entire life been at this museum. And that when they were collecting it, they were collecting something fresh and new and exciting. And that's so cool. So I bought some postcards of my favorite art, and I thought I would share with you. I love postcards because, and I often buy postcards as souvenirs, because you get a great photograph of the art. Postcards are cheap, and postcards are easy to carry around. They don't take up a whole lot of space, and they make great decorations. I hung some on the wall over there, and these are going to join those as soon as I finish showing them to you. So this is some Degas ballerinas. I love Degas so much, and I love the blue and the orange in this one. This is Dancers at the Bar, painted in 1900. Doesn't say when the Phillips acquired it, but the Phillips collection as a museum was founded in 1921. Should have said that. Kind of an important thing to know about when the first Museum of Modern Art in the U.S. was founded. I don't know when the Museum of Modern Art in New York City was established. That would be an interesting thing to compare. This one, modern art, is another one of those things like, mid-century photography that either I love it or I just don't get it. And this one, I love this. I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of architectural, but very abstract. This is by Paul Klee. It's called Cathedral, and it was painted in 1924. And so maybe I'm drawn to it because it did immediately, I saw Gothic cathedral. But it's not a true-to-life cathedral. I'm not sure why this grabbed me so much, but it really did. I feel like I'm showing slides in an art history class. I only have two others, don't worry. This one, I love the colors in this one. I can tell you, that is what grabbed me. And the little teeny tiny boat on the big ocean with the big, I don't know, I guess these are mountains. Oops, mountains. Little tiny boat. This is Winslow Homer rowing home, which was painted in 1890. And this is definitely all about the colors. I think you can probably guess from the things that I'm knitting that I'm really into the soft colors lately. And this hits that mark. So now, talked about photographs, right? This photograph is, I think, the greatest thing. It is a group of alumni of the Art Students League in New York City, which offered, and I do believe still does offer, free or low-cost art classes. So this photograph was taken in 1950. I will hold it up so you can see these gentlemen in their suits with paintings and art all around them. I just love it. I think it's so fun, and I think for the longer you look at it, you know, they all look kind of dour in their suits, but the longer you look at it, the more you see, like, there's some, you know, crazy poses going on, and I mean, not crazy in the sense of, like, you know, tongue sticking out and eyes crossed, but people are sitting very differently. People are looking in different directions. People are, let me get this right. This dude looks like he is having the worst day of his life. I shouldn't laugh at that, but I'm going to. It's just a great photo. So that's what I have to share with you. And it was the reason the museum was open for free was in affiliation with the DC Jazz Festival, which, so there were people improvising jazz music in conjunction with a work of art. There was free jazz concerts. There was an instrument petting zoo, I think that's what they called it, where little kids could try playing all kinds of different instruments. There was a trumpet and a French horn and some different, like, percussion sort of shakers and drums and things. I think there was a trombone. It was adorable. There was this little boy trying to play the French horn, and he made a noise come out of it, and his face just lit up. So yeah, that was pretty cute. I had another history thing to talk about, but I think I've waved my hands around and gotten excited about the Phillips collection. So I think I'm going to save it, because I've been talking for 50 minutes. And I think I'd rather talk about books and then talk about this other history thing next time I podcast. So, it's a good one. It merits more than just a few minutes. So I'm going to talk about books. First, I'm going to talk about the book that I talked about last week, The Fair Fight by Anna Freeman. Awesome. I loved this book so much. Books about female friendships win me over. If it's a good quality female friendship, I do not care what happens. I do care what happens in the rest of the book. But I love female friendships. I love them in literature. I love studying them in history. Yeah. And this book has a really wonderful, it takes a while to come about, which I think is my biggest gripe, that this friendship between the sort of lower class boxer and the she was born into the aristocracy, but she married into a merchant. Her husband is a merchant. So she kind of took a step down in society, and they form a friendship, and their friendship takes a while to come about. And I think it makes sense why it takes so long to come about, but I wish we'd seen more of it. And that's it. That's the only complaint that I have about this book, because Anna Freeman does an incredible job drawing on history and drawing on language, sort of the ways that her characters talk. Each of them has a very distinct voice, and each of them sounds so believably like they belong in the late 18th, early 19th century. And I do want to briefly share from the author's note at the end of the book, because I was curious as I was reading about real 18th century female boxers, and they existed. There were women. Primarily they boxed with other women, but sometimes they would fight men, which is what Ruth, who's the working class character, she is known for boxing with men. And they also boxed sort of male-female teams, boxed each other. She mentions James and Elizabeth Stokes in the author's note. There was also a woman, Lady Barrymore, who was known as the Boxing Baroness. She participated in like sparring matches in the 1820s. So that's pretty cool that this is not totally historical fancy. Good to know that there were actually women who were boxing at that time. So I would highly recommend that to anybody who's interested. As I said, I think last time, anybody who's interested in history, that's a great, and it looks like a long book. Don't let it intimidate. I read it in a week because I could not put it down. I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning one night reading it. I was trying to finish it. I didn't finish it. I fell asleep. I haven't done that in forever. I go to bed, I get tired early, and I powered through. I couldn't stop reading it. So I have two books that I'm reading at the moment, and the first one, I think I've mentioned that I studied classics in college as well as history. And so I'm reading The Lost Books of the Odyssey, a novel by Zachary Mason. I hope I'm reading that right. Yes, Zachary Mason. The camera does that clever thing where when I upload this, it turns around all the words, but right now they show up on my screen in a mirror. So that's why I had a moment there. And so the Odyssey, the Iliad is my favorite. I like the Odyssey well enough. I don't dislike it. I've read it twice, I think, in college. I think that's right. The Iliad is my favorite. Between Odysseus, the trickster, and Achilles, the sometimes childish warrior, gotta say, I prefer Achilles. And I think there's something about the Iliad that just gets to me, and I don't know what it is. When I studied abroad in college, I took a tutorial at Oxford on ancient epics. And so we read the Iliad, I read the Iliad and the Odyssey, as well as Ovid's Metamorphoses, because I'd already read the Aeneid multiple times in English and in Latin. So we decided to go with the Metamorphoses instead, which is great. I love the Metamorphoses of Ovid, not Franz Kafka's The Metamorphoses, which is the most disgusting, the bug. I can't do it. I had to read that in English and in German once in the same year. Terrible, terrible, very terrible. Anyways, I had to read the Iliad and then the Odyssey. And my tutor, she called me out on it. She was like, you love the Iliad. You love the Iliad. You don't like the Odyssey as much. And I had to tell her she was absolutely right. But anyways, this book basically is written as if it were a collection of fragments of different versions of the Odyssey. So it's not a coherent novel. I would say it's more a collection of short stories, but that doesn't really make sense because they're all a version of the Odyssey. Since the Odyssey was an oral tradition, long before somebody possibly called Homer, wrote it down. Possibly. There were numerous different versions. And that is what this book is basically pretending to be. And I say pretending to be, but it does it so believably and so well. And there are so many different Odysseus's in this. And I think he would get a kick out of that. because he was the trickster. He was the smooth-tongued, talked his way out of anything, you know, whatever. I think he would get a kick out of this. And there's actually one story that kind of plays around with the idea of, it's my favorite one so far. It plays around with the idea of Odysseus sort of sneaking off from the Trojan War to the Far East. Not what we think of as the Far East, but like further east than Troy, which was relatively east of Greece. And he makes his living as a bard, going around to different courts and singing songs. And he kind of starts out with all the traditional ones that everybody knows, everybody's familiar with, and everybody can sort of, expect what's coming. And eventually he gets confident enough to start telling his own, or singing his own songs that he's created. And so he starts singing about this guy, Odysseus, who is the hero of the Trojan War. And eventually he decides to give up being a bard in the East and goes back to his island of Ithaca. And he can't be a bard anymore because people will figure it out that he's, telling stories, telling tall tales that aren't true. And so he becomes known as a patron of other bards. And if you don't want to have, this is like a tiny fragment of, this is 5 pages out of the book. There's so many other stories. This is really a wonderful read. But if you don't want to have the ending of the, funny moment at the end of this particular story spoiled, don't listen for 30 seconds, because I'm gonna tell you. Odysseus says that he pays most handsomely those bards who get his own songs word perfect. So if you stopped listening, you can start listening again. I've shared my tiny, tiny spoiler. I'm so sorry if you don't like spoilers. This is not a plot-driven book. It's driven by Odysseus and this idea of fragments of different Odysseys. So if you like the classics, I think this would probably make the most sense to you. And I know many people are familiar with the Odyssey and the rough idea that Odysseus leaves Troy after the war and sails around for 12 years before he makes it home, and has various mishaps and adventures along the way. But I think this would be more enjoyable if you had read the Odyssey. And if you want to read the Iliad or the Odyssey and you have not, my very favorite translations, and I think there's a lot of people out there who would agree with me, are those of Richmond Lattimore. They're translations from the 50s or 60s, and they are far and away. They're readable, and they are accurate, and they're just really great. So if you're interested in reading the Iliad or the Odyssey, Richmond Lattimore is the way to go. And this book, The Lost Books of the Odyssey by Zachary Mason, pretty great. So that's been my bus reading because it's easy to pick up and put back down again. And then for my bedtime reading, because I was talking about how I like to read light things before I go to sleep, I started The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. And I'm about, I think I'm about 150, 160 pages into a 770-page doorstop. It's a heavy book. I mean that literally. It's a heavy, heavy object. I don't have a scale, so I can't tell you how much it weighs. So far, so good. I know that lots of people, Jeanette of Bookish Stitcher has mentioned to me that she'll be curious to know what I think of it, because I think a lot of people have read most of it and loved it and then hated the ending. So we'll see where I shake out. So far, I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it for the same reasons that I enjoyed The Secret History, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago. Oh, there's Donna Tartt. Interesting looking woman. But anyways, I the reasons I loved The Secret History, because I love Donna Tartt's way with words. The Goldfinch clearly takes place in the modern day because Theo, I hope that's his name. Yes, Theo Decker. Theo has a cell phone. There's laptops and computers, and technology makes occasional appearances. More so than it did in The Secret History, but The Secret History was also written in like 1990. So it's a little, things have changed in the ensuing 25 years, or 24 years, whatever, since the book came out in 2014. It won the Pulitzer Prize. I think I mentioned when I said that I checked it out and was planning to read it, that it had won a prize, couldn't remember which one. Pulitzer. But there's something, despite those technology appearances, there's something that feels very out of time. I think that's the best way to put it about her writing. The way that she writes feels older than the technology seems. So it seems like the book should be set 40 or 50 years ago, almost. But it's not because of the technology. And I don't think I'm doing that justice because I love that. Her descriptions about things are beautiful, even when the things are horrific. I don't think it's no secret that Theo's mother dies in an explosion at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. That's given away in the book flap. I wouldn't spoil a giant plot point on this podcast. Don't worry, that will never happen. Putting that out there. But yes, I really enjoy that about Donna Tartt's writing, and it was very much the same with The Secret History. So yes, so far so good. So far so good. But I've also only read, a seventh of the book or whatever, maybe a little bit more than a seventh of the book. But it's going to take me a little bit of time, but that's because there is no way I am not carrying this in my purse to work. It physically weighs too much. And if my dad's watching, he's going to tell me that I should get an e-reader, because the moment that he realized that he needed an e-reader was when he was reading a book much like this, heavy hardcover, and his boss next to him was reading on a Kindle or a Nook and had, hundreds of books at his fingertips in something that weighed probably as much as the cover of this book weighs. So maybe it's time. Maybe not. No. Also, library books are free. I have to pay money for a Kindle. So we're going to stick with the library books for the moment. So, on that fine note, I do believe that I am going to let you all go. Not that I've held you hostage here. I very much hope that you've enjoyed watching. Thank you for watching, and thank you if you're returning, if you're watching it again. Thank you. If this is your first episode, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. I hope all of you will stick around for the next episode in 2 weeks. Yeah, so come join the Ravelry group. Again, it is Stitching Between Pages podcast. Come check out the show notes on the blog. Those will be up at the same time as the episode. And I will put a link underneath the video. I will probably also link to the Ravelry group or put the name of the Ravelry group and put the places where you can contact me. So Ravelry, Instagram, and Twitter. Yeah. So thank you all for watching. Have a lovely couple of weeks ahead of you. Happy knitting. Happy reading. And I guess I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.